What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency Podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. This episode is brought to you by Onhand VAs, your go-to for client-facing and office-based virtual assistants. Their systemized onboarding process is key to seamlessly integrating VAs into your insurance agency. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York. I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Shawn Fitzgerald, founder of LAF Advisors in Long Island, New York. Mr. Fitzgerald, what's going on today, sir?
Man, a whole bunch of stuff. You killed that intro. First time doing it for people that didn't know. Man, I'm doing great. I got a whole bunch of different stuff I'm working on for 2024. Things are starting to, I would say, slow down a little bit.
Slow down, Shawn. We forgot Mr. Brad Boat's listening to the show, and he wants the weather update.
It's cold.
All
right,
we're
in the Northeast in December.
You're getting right into the meat and the potatoes here. We got to start with the appetizer. All right, so it's a nice 25 out right now. I just got done watching Brett Young's Instagram story where he was complaining how cold it was when it was 58 degrees.
I saw that. So
you know the people. I know you don't like the weather update, but we have to give the people what they want, Shawn.
It's cold. It's December in New York. That's all you need to know. Stay away. Anybody that's not in the Northeast.
All right, everybody. To give you a little context of what you're tuning in for today, we have a solo episode. We want to talk about 2023, 24, all that good stuff. And right before we start hitting record, my lovely co-host, Mr. Shawn Fitzgerald, tried to plan this out, and we refused to do so. None of this is planned. We're just running with it. We find that it's best when we just kind of have a conversation, have a little talk, and we're going to start with the fact that Shawn is going on vacation next week for the holidays, and I just let him know what state he's actually going in because he tried to tell me that he was coming up in my direction, but finds out he's actually going to Pennsylvania. So who knows where he'll end up, folks, but you're going to have to tune in next week to find out.
Yeah, I basically told Stephen anything west of Long Island is upstate New York, so that's how him and I talk about these things.
We have a good banter of him thinking upstate is what upstate is, and it's completely different. But we can get into that at a different show. Shawn, you mentioned it, a different intro on the Scratch Agency podcast today.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thanks for keeping me in line there. Yeah, we started working with Michael Cruz. For those of you that don't know, Onhand's VA. He's got a VA company that focuses on client-facing VAs, which we found very interesting. And I went through the, really dug into the weeds with Mike, and he kind of showed me how the whole onboarding process looks like and how they find VAs. And it was a really interesting and different perspective from a lot of the other VA companies. So Stephen and I kind of brainstormed. We talked with Mike about it. We had a couple of calls, and we just figured that would be a perfect partnership, especially for our audience that is mainly Scratch agents. It just seems to be a really good fit. So you want to dive a little bit more into that, Stephen?
Yeah, I think you really hit on all of it. I think a lot of people have asked, and I want to get into the community call that we had last week. That was our episode last week and things. A lot of people have asked us, like, what's the plan with the podcast? And what have we said all along? We have no plan. We're just having fun. And I can tell you one thing, it's really exciting to have a partnership with Onhand VAs, and Michael Cruz has been a huge advocate of the show and kind of what we're trying to do. And all we're doing is trying to bring value to each and every one of those Scratch agents out there that's listening, any established agents. I think it's been surprising and cool that there's a lot of established agents that listen to the show regularly that say, hey, I've gotten value from it. So we're just having a good time. And, this is a great thing for us. We're excited to bring Onhand VAs as a partner onto the podcast, and really suggest you check them out and what Michael Cruz is doing, because like Shawn said, it's very important to us that, we believe in what we put here on the platform that we have. And I think that just what Michael's doing is he's doing it the right way. He's, first off, he's taking care of his people, but he's really getting to know the clients. Shawn, you talked about it. We both went through the process of what it looks like to onboard with them. And he's really getting to know the need and how he can fit within that need and be a solution for your agency. And we know a lot of Scratch agents, that first step for them is usually at this point a VA. Some of them that's the direction they look, and so it just seemed to make complete sense. So we're super excited about that. Shawn, why don't you touch on that community call from last week, man? That was a blast.
Yeah, that call was fantastic. I feel like Brett could have charged thousands of dollars if he wanted to. There was a ton of value there. And it was, for those of you that missed it, it was all about year end annual planning. And the approach that Brett and his team takes to annual planning is super interesting. And they really dive deep into like what I found to be super interesting is like just from the basic standpoint of what does your ideal day look like? And that's something that really stuck
Huge.
out to me that I never really thought of before. So he dives into the nitty gritty in that. And I think that was, for me, that was one of the biggest takeaways from it. What does your day look like now? And what do you want your day to look like? Insert date 5 years from now.
It seems so simple to think of things like that, but but we overthink it every single time. No matter if
Every
it's
time.
like annual planning, goal planning, whatever it is, it's so easy. It's an easier perspective to look at it and say, what does that look like? What is that I want look like? And then back into it rather than, the
Yeah.
journey going forward of how you're going to get there. In our BNI group yesterday, we had our annual Christmas party, and we got up and said one thing we were thankful for and one thing we're looking excited for in the next year. And there was a lot of people that said, oh, I want to double my revenue. I want to add 5 employees. I want to this. And it's like, and I shared that from the episode with the entire BNI group. I said, when I got up, I said, I just want to provide some perspective here. Like, I challenge you all to start looking at what do you want your day to look like, and backing into that. And what objectives do you have to get done to make that happen? And guess what? They're going to be doubling your revenue, adding staff, whatever it is. But then at least
Yep.
you know the course of action to try to get there. And so, I mean, and you said, in case you missed it, luckily for us, Brett was very gracious with his time and we were able to record it and put it out as an episode. So, I think this is definitely the longest episode we had. I think it was like an hour and 10 minutes, but man, I've already, this week alone, I've already listened back to it twice. And took some notes on it and implemented some things. He got really into the numbers and how to understand the numbers and what we should be looking for. And like we talked, I think Ciara, who was on the call, brought it up, like this is something that nobody talks about and nobody teaches us,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like when you got a producer that goes into an agency owner, you got a captive agent that goes independent, whatever it is. There's things that just from the business owner's standpoint that just aren't talked about enough. And I think if
Yeah.
you listen to that episode, it's exactly what Brett Young says. He said, when I was starting out, nobody wanted to talk about the numbers. Nobody wanted to talk about, like, I'm at this point
So true.
with this. What should it look like for next year? What's realistic for next year? And then again, backing into that, right? So, man, it was super cool. Super cool. If you missed that and you're wondering how did I miss that or whatever, join our Scratch community on Telegram. That's where I think we got 37 people on there now, Shawn, and the
Yes, sir.
conversations every day
It's
seem to
growing.
be getting better and better and better. And people just listen. Real people in real Scratch agencies just sharing what's working, wins, losses. It's been an incredible thing. So make sure to go to scratchagencypodcast.com, join the community to get involved with that Telegram. But again, publicly, huge thank you to Brett Young for joining us. He was so gracious with his time. And I had a couple people actually call me after that were on the call with like, dude, Brett should have charged money for that. I mean, that was incredible.
For sure.
But
It was amazing.
we have it as a podcast episode out for our listeners, so I'm super pumped about that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like you said, that was just straight value. So game changer for
Yeah.
sure. But let's talk about our how the agencies did in 2023. You want to start on that?
Yeah. So this morning I logged in and I opened the bank account. We still have money and the lights are on, so that's a good news, right? I think
That's a win.
I just tell me, I got
Another
my high
day.
performance planner, and that's my first thing is make sure we got money and that the light switch works. No, man,
Yep.
it's been so exciting. I had coffee with a friend of mine actually this morning, so this conversation is timely that I haven't seen in probably a year and a half since I started the journey. And a lot of people ask, how's it been? What do you feel about where you're at and all these things? For me, everything happened so quickly from the transition to an agent to an owner. I didn't have time to set expectations, and I think that was the best thing ever. I never had any expectations for myself besides you're doing this and there's no option B, right?
Yep.
And so, yeah, man, I'm trying to think. I should probably know this better off the top of my head. I think 18, 19 months in, 19 months. I feel really good where we're at. I feel really good about the pace that we've grown at. I feel really good about the the results that we've had in the last year and a half since we've been established. Because I haven't come on 2 years, I feel good about the moves that we made. I just recently moved my office strategically into my hometown, and I've got some exciting projects coming. And I did a post this morning about a project I'm working on. And one thing I put in the post was how exciting it is to see these ideas become reality, right? And that's up to me. And I think that's the exciting part, is it's up to me to make that happen. So I think, overall, it was a fantastic 2023. I look back at the long days and the long nights, and let's be honest, we're super honest on this podcast. That's what I like. That's what I love. Many times where I'm like, man, is this really for me? Like,
Mhm.
am I on the right, am I on the right path here? And what will the next step look like and all that stuff. But like reflecting back and looking at that was, I'm very happy where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, the first 2 years is definitely like because that's when you just start getting your renewals, you know? So that journey is just like you said, early mornings, late nights. I mean, I'm almost 4 years in. I'm still early mornings, late nights. So it might not get better for another year or two, Stephen. But yeah, man, I think you know what I noticed from you too, which I thought was really interesting. Towards the end of this year, I noticed you've put an emphasis on delegating.
Mm.
And I feel like we've both started to focus on that a little bit more. Just to give our listeners some insight, like we hired somebody to help us with the editing of the podcast. So back in the day, the podcast would be done. I'd have to go in, I'd edit it myself, post it to, whatever posting platform, cut the clips, post it. Now we have somebody that we just say, hey, episode 58's done, do your thing. And they go in and do everything and say, hey, everything's in the drive, you're good to go. And that's freed us up to do a lot of other things. God, how many times can we talk about 10x is better than 2x? I mean that book was
Firing
amazing.
ourselves.
Exactly. So I just feel like you've done a really good job of that, especially with like Somia too. Like I feel like she's done a fantastic job with you, like helping out with the send out cards and different things like that. So um, I know you had a great year, but I just wanted to put that delegation thing onto you because I know you've been focusing on that a lot. And now, like strategically, I kind of have an idea of what your next move is from what you've told me, and it's just another step of delegating, so you could focus on
Yeah.
what you need to focus on, being more involved in the community and things like that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, we can get kind of into the look ahead for 24 and then talk about what you got going on. I think the transition makes
Yeah,
sense here. So, I appreciate you saying that. I've been battling in the last couple of weeks very transparently of kind of what's the next year going to look like for C5 in the sense of, do I go a producer route next, or do I go, a customer account manager, or, what does that look like? I've had some great success with the VA that I've worked with, and there's a lot of that she's not client facing. But I've had her for almost a year at this point, and there's stuff that she's, rinse and repeat, she's got down. But the client facing stuff and the type of clientele and the book size now and all that stuff has been getting a lot for me. So I made the decision, and I'm sticking with it, and I'm also saying it publicly because I'm sticking with it, that the next hire will be a CSR, a customer service, account manager or whatever. And I'm excited about that because over the last year and a half, scratch agents that are listening to this can relate. You are doing everything, right? You're
everything.
changing the billing changes, you're taking the calls, you're issuing the policies, you're following up, you're assisting clients with their needs, you're doing marketing, you're doing everything. We all know that. Everyone that's listening
Wearing
to
all
this
the
knows that.
hats.
The problem with that with me is I'm 99.986% referral based, community based. And the involvement over the last year and a half of T5 in those areas that grew my brand up until that point has been lacked because I've had to run the business.
Yes.
So, it just makes for me, and we talk about it a lot, Shawn. every agency is so different. Your
Yep.
agency and my agency could not be farther from difference in different ways we operate, right?
So different.
And
Yep.
there's no right and there's no wrong. It's just the way it is. But for me, it just makes so much sense for that to be the next step, because then it'll
Hmm.
allow me to get back out there. It'll allow me to get to be continue to be the face of the agency, to continue to, rebrand myself. I mean, let's call it what it is. I came from my family agency. I'm still continuing to rebrand myself. Still to this day, 19 months, I go to an event and people still think I'm with the last agency I was. So there's that retraining of people, and I need to be out there, and I need to do that. And I need to do that at the breakfasts for the chamber. I need to do that at the BNI meetings. I need to do that at the Rotary meetings during lunch. I need to do that at the after hours. And so being able to get out there and do that and double down on that, I got to have the support here, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I made the decision to do that. I would say probably 6 to 8 months is the plan for that. But I'm super excited about that. And one last thing, I know I'm going on a rant here, Shawn, but one thing I remember was when I was on Hanley's podcast, we were talking about it and how I've always been so community focused and always been referral based and this and that. And, he was saying something that organically challenged me to say, yeah, I guess I should get into the cold calling, or I should get into the other. And he challenged me on it and said, why? If you're doing so well with, if that avenue you're doing, why not double down on that? And I think we should talk about the leads with you, and especially
Hmm.
like with your producer. Talk about doubling down. You guys are crushing that.
Yeah.
And like, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
for me, I struggle with it. It's completely, and so like, I think, and I appreciate Hanley saying that. That was probably almost a year ago, because it kind of reprogrammed myself of like, I got to just do me. I got to stop comparing to like, oh, well, Shawn's having success with leads. That means I got to be a lead guy and a community guy and this and that. You know what I mean? It just is,
Yeah, but what I will say to that though is I think it's good to be open minded and willing to try new things. Like, so for instance, like, I purchase a lot of leads and we do really well with purchasing leads, but I also do some community networking in the sense of like I'm in my local BNI group. I'm not overboard with the community involvement. It's literally just BNI. I really don't do anything else as far as like chamber or Rotary or anything like that. It's for me, it's just BNI, and that's how I've gotten a lot of my business referral partners. Now I could try to triple down on that, and join chamber and join Rotary and do all those things. But the way my life is right now, it makes more sense for me to triple down on purchasing the leads, because we could work those during the day. I have kids that I got to be with after, a certain time, which is when 99% of those community events are. So for me, where I'm at, it makes the most sense, but it's okay to do. I get it. Focusing on one thing, it makes total sense, but I think it's important to also be open-minded. Like you just saying, hey, I'm going to buy a few leads just to see how it works out. Like at least you tried it and now you know.
which I've done.
You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
that's my point. It's like, I think it's good to focus on what you're double down on what you're great at, but don't be closed-minded of maybe trying something new just to see how it works out, Even
Yeah.
even with Ryan, who's my producer in my office, like he'll challenge me sometimes and say, hey, I know we're using this lead provider, but what do you think about this other company? And so, like sometimes I catch myself. My initial reaction is, nah, what we're doing now works. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. We'll just buy more. And funny thing is I said, all right, let's just try this other company, and our contact rate almost like doubled with this new lead company that we use. So,
Yeah.
that again, that's just because I was open minded and willing to try something different.
Yeah. One last
So
thing I'll say before we can dive into your stuff deeper that I'm thinking
yeah,
about from just a lesson of 2023 is, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, it's so important to remember to stick your head above water and kind of take a look, right? I saw a post on Instagram earlier that said like yourself in 6 months is going to be so proud of you where you were at today or whatever it is. And like,
yeah,
yeah, I can sit here and say I'm 19 months in, haven't made that first hire yet, still just have the VA, whatever. I can go down this whole rabbit hole, but like if I go back to what has happened in the last 2 years, 2 years ago today, I was a very unhappy, different person, working at a different company, not fulfilled, X, Y, and Z. What has happened over 2 years? I've started a scratch agency. I've made an offer on four. Another agency tried to buy me. Like all of these, like you think about it and you look back and like, man, the brick by brick mentality. Like if it wasn't for that one brick that I moved up after that hard Tuesday that I worked 16 hours a day,
Hmm.
that would have never, these little things would have never happened. So I just think it's so important because, especially if, like, and I've talked about the vulnerability of being by yourself and being alone in this game and how lonely it
Yeah.
can be. Make sure you look back and see it, even if that's setting up prompts or setting reminders for yourself of like, hey, every 6 months, take a look back, whatever it is. I think there's so much power. And, Brett talked a little bit about that in the call as well. I just think there's so much power in doing that.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, for sure, man. I totally agree with all that. What was I gonna
Tell us
say?
about
Oh,
LAF. Let's
yeah,
jump
yeah,
into
yeah.
LAF.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, so 2023 for me was about delegating. I mean, similar to you, Stephen, how you started doing some of that stuff. You actually gave me the recommendation to read that book we talked about earlier, and I found it to be super helpful. So we, for me, taking a huge load off my plate was the person to help with editing of the podcast. That helped me focus more on my agency, which was super beneficial. For those of you that don't know, Anna was like my first hire a couple of years ago. She was a virtual assistant, not client facing. And this year, I really gave her a lot more responsibility from a data entry and quoting standpoint. So anything that came into my agency, whether it's a company that doesn't download or uploading a commission statement somewhere, in my management system, whatever the case is, I had her do as much of the data entry as possible. So that was my first thing: is knock off the data entry, knock off the quoting, and then I would say probably my biggest move this year was passing anything personal lines related to Ryan in my office. So even if he didn't bring the lead in himself, let's say it just came from one of my business referral partners, I
Your
would pass
producer.
that lead. Yep, to Ryan. Yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting to mention that, but yeah.
Yeah.
So Ryan handled all the new business on the personal line side of things, and even on the remarketing side. I had a few accounts that were getting non-renewed from a specific carrier, and I would just call my producer and say, "Hey, Ryan, you want to handle this? I'll give you the credit for it, and you take it from here." And that helped take a huge load off my shoulders. So delegating was definitely a big thing, and that helped me. It was funny. I talked to Stephen and Brett about this, and I talked to Taylor about it as well. It's cool to delegate that stuff, but what am I going to do with that extra time
Hmm.
that I have after I delegate all those tasks? So for me, it was focusing more on commercial insurance. I've always focused on it, but personal lines would I don't want to say bog me down because it helped keep me, alive this far. So, and now it just got me to a point where now I could focus on the bigger accounts. And we spoke about this, Stephen, on the Patrick McBride episode, which was fantastic, is like the dopamine hit you get from personal lines because it's so heavy in volume, right? You could work on 5+ personal lines counts a day. I mean, you could write multiple accounts a day, personal lines, right? And commercial, I feel like the life cycle of commercial is a little slower and longer. So where I'm used to getting like 4 or 5 dopamine hits a day of like, yeah, I just got that sale. Now it's like once, twice a week, because I'm still like building up that pipeline in commercial. So that's something I'm definitely trying to get more used to. And I'm still like, I keep catching myself like, maybe I'll just dip my toe back in personal lines, and then I'll call Steven and he's like, nah, stick to the commercial, so he like keeps me on the ledge. But
Mhm.
yeah, I would say delegation was the biggest thing for me in 2023. And I mean, moving forward, my revenue goal for 2024 is set to a point where that'll help me be able to bring on an account manager, which will help my next thing I want to delegate, which is anything renewal related. So specifically, it's going to be renewal related on the personal side, and then on the commercial side. But that's like the next task that I see, because now I got about 3 years of renewals. I'm starting to see like that renewal process, especially in today's hard market, is just taking up a ton of my time during the day. So that's the next thing to cross off the list.
And,
That's
and,
all good.
and I'm just curious here to talk through this. So, will that be a
Yeah.
hybrid position since you guys are mainly hybrid or mainly remote at this point? I would say. I mean, what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's going to be a hybrid position. I'm almost almost guaranteed it's going to be a hybrid position. Honestly, it might be a client-facing VA.
Mm.
Mike and I are working on some things now where we're talking about that. So it actually might be a client-facing VA. So we're taking our time. I'm in no rush for it. So
Yeah.
I would say hopefully in the next few months, that's something we're going to be able to work out.
Yeah, let me challenge you on something. Not challenge you. I just
Yeah,
want to discuss it because I think you do very
challenge me,
well
man.
at even well, no, it's just more of a probing question with the culture of LAF. You have the VA and the producer, and you guys are all remote. I know you and Ryan
Yeah,
get together every once in a while. You make sure to go to lunch. You go to the office, and you just had that trip. God, you went to the Buffalo Bills. What uh, the good old Buffalo Bills. That'll be a different episode. No, no, you know what? Pause for a second. This guy goes to Buffalo for a football game. Okay, all right, and then it sits in the heated section. All
it
right.
was a box. It was a box, not on my
Oh,
budget.
excuse us. Excuse us. It was the box. You got to get the real Buffalo experience at the 300 level with the wind coming right off the lake to really feel it. Anyways,
I'm good. I'm good.
I'll leave it there. Talk to us about either the plan or where you're at now for having that remote culture. We hear that a lot and how
Yeah,
challenging it is. But I feel from just our daily conversations and our friendship of knowing how you and Ryan work together and how well you work together and how you guys are on the same page with things. And you told me about the trip and how great it was and all these things you guys got to work out in, like all that stuff. Like talk to us about like as
yeah,
the leader of the company, what your plan is for that or what you focus on or something like that.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a great question. So yeah, I was intentional with a few different things because as you and I started to talk about Urban Young a lot and Brett Young, and I was talking to Brett, how to watching some of the things he did with like, working out, and he's got like a TV with a Zoom call going on and stuff like that, and keeping the team involved. So I thought to myself, man, how do I got to do something systematically to keep the team and the culture right. So one of the things I do is a weekly call every Monday morning with Ryan specifically, and that's my producer, to go over. We go over sales. We go over sales from the previous week, what he's working on now, what he has in the pipeline, and maybe just go over like some cancellations that came up, how to handle that. It's usually like I would say maybe a 30-minute phone call, but that's like our weekly sales call. So that's one thing. So we're always connected every Monday morning. The other thing is we do like a monthly, we'll call it like a monthly lunch where Ryan and I get together in person. He lives about an hour away from me. So once a month we pick a spot, usually somewhere in the middle, and we have lunch and we just kind of shoot the shit with each other. And we will talk about, hey, what's going on with the agency, what we're working on. Is there anything you're not liking? Is there anything you would do
Mm.
differently moving forward? Is there anything you're having trouble with or struggles with? And we kind of just have an open conversation. And I think that's one of the things that's helped the most is like, I'm just like, if he wants to know a number, this is what the agency makes. You want to know what our expense? Here's the expenses. Some people might not think that's the best thing, but I found for me, just being as open as possible has definitely helped with the culture, and I think that helps Ryan just have like trust in me. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. You're not doing anything fancy.
No.
You're doing something very simple. Communicating. That's it.
Yes, and
I
you
mean,
and I know about that very well.
don't we? Don't we? It's my middle name.
Yeah.
But think about the power if he's having a bad day or if he's struggling with a certain task that you've given him or something for you to come and say, hey, what are you liking? What aren't you liking? Is there anything you're struggling with? Let's talk about it instead of ignoring it. He's producing, everything's good, and then following up with it, and he's
Yeah.
unhappy, and he's been unhappy, and he's looking for another job, and all these things. It's
Yeah.
simple communication.
Communication 100%. So even to the sense of, I'll say, hey, this is what I'm thinking moving forward. What do you think? Like we're right now we're going through a possible name change, logo change, complete rebrand of LAF. And I told Ryan, right when that thought came into my mind, I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking of. It's going to be a slow process, but I just wanted to throw that out there. And if you want, you can help me with it. If not, don't worry about it. You can focus on your new business stuff. No big deal. But I just wanted to let you know kind of what I'm working on. and just having that open communication I found to be super helpful. And we just, one of the wholesalers, RT Specialty, they took us to the Buffalo Bills game, and they said, "Hey, do you have anybody else you want to bring?" The guy in my office, perfect fit, obviously. And I try to make sure I involve Ryan in those types of things. So, yeah, I think like you said, Stephen, it's all communication.
You're giving him buy-in. You're making him know that he's a part of what you're doing. You're making him feel appreciated in any little thing that you do. Even the power of just saying, "I've got this idea. Either walk me off the ledge here or tell me that, you agree with me, or we can talk about it." And, sure, there's high level stuff that as the owner that you have the right to do and you're going to do and all that. But from the culture, I mean, I didn't know he was an hour away. That's impressive.
That's like 45 minutes.
I really commend you for that, because I think, you guys do an excellent job with that and the communication, and
thanks.
It can be challenging, right?
It can be, yeah. And I think just to end this off too is like, there's been times he has walked me off the ledge. I said, "Hey, I'm looking at this piece of technology. This is where I think it could help. What do you think?" And he'll tell me, "Dude, I don't want to have another thing that I log into and I have to input data." Like I think let's hold off on that. And if I feel strongly about it, I'll push back on him. But if I don't feel that strongly about it, I'll say, "Cool. All right, yeah, let's skip it. We'll just, maybe next year we'll revisit, see if anything's changed." So, the open communication, the last thing with that open communication too is he can call or text me any single time he wants. And I tell him that. Like he'll sometimes call me a few times in a row and be like, "Oh, man, sorry, just another thing." And I'll be like, "No, dude, call me as many times as you need." Like I never want him to feel like he's stressing me out.
Open door policy.
You know what I mean?
Open door
exactly.
policy.
So open door policy via phone call,
Via phone call. Open phone policy. Better go trademark that.
There you go.
Well, that's it. Everybody, that is the first episode of 2024. Man, another year, Shawn. It has been an incredible ride doing this. Again, I want to start off that, thank you for just following along the journey, joining our Telegram, being a part of the community, because the reason that thank you means so much to me and Shawn is because each of you have done something to help us in this journey too. So a lot of people say there's a lot of value we provide by hosting this show, having the people on, planning the guests that we do. But when you become a part of what we're trying to do is just help each other, provide value to scratch agents, know that people aren't alone. We're in this together and we can do it. You're helping myself, and I know you're helping Shawn as well. So we're really looking forward to this year. I'd like to give a shout out to myself, who's going to be sailing away on a cruise for 5 days when this episode comes out. So I just want to document that, man. I can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. But everybody, welcome to 2024. It's going to be the best year yet. We appreciate it. It's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, know in your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.